In 1985, Nintendo would release what is now known as one of the greatest innovations to the video game market, especially for the Western audience, the Nintendo Entertainment System, which came out at the right time and the right place, especially at a time when many had stopped playing video games due to a lack of quality and a flooded market on top of that. Nintendo would not only become cemented as one of the top publishers in the video game industry even to date, but would also be cemented into pop culture itself, a big staple of the 80s and 90s.
The Nintendo Entertainment System. Now you're playing with power.
But here we are 35 years later, and although 2020 has been an interesting year, I would argue that one of the biggest surprises for video games actually comes from a partnership between LEGO and Nintendo. And one of the first announcements we got was actually a playset featuring a digital Mario figure that interacted with the environment based on colors, as well as different scanning codes. And this was all fun. But what about the LEGO enthusiasts as well as the hardcore Nintendo fans that wanted something a little more than a playset? Well, there was a bigger surprise waiting. Because Nintendo and LEGO would then announce that one of the first major sets, and I would call it a real LEGO set on top of that, was actually a replica scale of the first flagship system, the NES. And that brings us here today. What's going on, Forgotten Nation? I'm your host, FG, and today we're going hands-on with the LEGO NES. This set is complete with the console, the controller, a cartridge based on Super Mario Bros., and my favorite piece of it all, a CRT television based on the 1980s design, featuring a fully functional scrolling wheel that actually plays Super Mario Bros. This is a 2,600 piece set priced at $230 American dollars, and I know a lot of people have their eyes popping at that price tag. I did too, but when you do move past the price points, what we have here is a really cool set that's not only authentic to the original system, but is a real piece of eye candy to look at. Honestly, to date, and this might be blind nostalgia talking too, this is my favorite LEGO set to date. But let's get hands-on, really get into the nitty-gritty details, because there's a lot to talk about here. So let's start nice and simple and begin with the console that started it all, the NES. So first up, we have the LEGO NES system. And from a distance, you would actually mistake this for the real system. That's how authentic it is. Down to every little brick, this is probably one of the most lifelike replications in LEGO form we've seen of any set to date. Going off the side, we actually have the AV ports, as well as the back where we have the different power switches. And they didn't have to go this much with it, but it just looks amazing. They could have done the bare minimum and gone at that. But the fact that we have special pieces that make it look as though it's sticking out of the system, just like the real one, makes it so much more authentic. So props to the LEGO team for making this one the best sets to date, because overall, this just looks amazing. But now let's talk about the cartridge bay, because just like the real thing, you can pop out the cartridge. And thankfully this set includes the Super Mario Bros. Cartridge. Now it's worth mentioning that both the system and the cartridge aren't one-to-one with the actual NES and cartridges, but overall it matches the LEGO schematic quite well, and very faithful on top of that. And the cartridge itself only has 2 stickers. There are 3 stickers total in this set, so everything else you see from the logos and the wording is all printed pieces unique to the set. Just a little more authentic on top of that. Overall, this looks amazing. But now let's talk about a small little Easter egg, because if you pop off the side, and this is a bit of a spoiler, so tune out if you don't want to see it, we actually have a very cool nod to level 1-2 of Super Mario Bros. And it even features one of the biggest Easter eggs at the time, the Warp Zone. They didn't have to do this, but they did, and it's amazing. The fact that you'll never know about this had you not built the system, or even seen videos on it, makes this a really authentic Easter egg that only die-hard Nintendo fans or LEGO builders will ever get to experience. unless you pop off the side, but come on, it's a secret to everyone. Overall, I'm very impressed with the authenticity of the NES, and is probably my favorite set to date. Not to mention, it was a lot of fun building. Up next, we have the LEGO NES Controller, and unlike the rest of the set, this one's actually 1-to-1. Not only is it the same size of an authentic NES controller, but it feels great too. There are no stickers to this set piece, everything is down to the brick. Not only does it look good, but it even feels good. And since it plugs into the system, it makes it all the more authentic to how the actual NES is. And just adds an extra layer to an awesome set piece that is the LEGO NES. My only nitpick with the controller is that I wish the buttons could actually be pushed. I wish there was a bit of flexibility with the buttons that you could actually have it feel like an NES controller, but it's a small nitpick to have considering how great and how authentic it feels. Overall, it's a sweet addition to an already epic system. Now, arguably the best part of the set for many collectors as well as Nintendo fans out there, we have the LEGO CRT Television with a scrolling Mario game inside of it. And not only was this a lot of fun to build, but this makes for an awesome set piece regardless of who has this. Because not only are Legos fun to build, but they're fun to show off as well, and the nostalgia factor in this one is especially strong. Now, it's worth mentioning the small details, of course. We have essentially what would be an 80s television, down to the scrolling channel clicker that actually clicks thanks to a mechanism inside, every small little button, a low-tech logo, but on the back as well, we actually have a low-tech sticker, the AV ports, a coaxial, and even an antenna that props up and down. I love the little antenna. It's a lot of fun for a small little set piece, but it makes a big difference going forward with the authenticity of what a LEGO set should be. Overall, it's a lot of fun. Now, the point of controversy is that the TV has a stand, but doesn't actually mount onto the stand. Rather, there's 3 studs underneath that keep it locked into place. So some would argue that's not the most sturdy, but me personally, I don't mind it. As long as you get it in position, I don't feel like it's going to fall over or lag anytime soon, and overall it just looks and feels great. It's a small little addition that didn't have to be included, but I'm glad they did include anyways, and it makes the set all the more cooler. But it does mess with one thing we'll be talking about just a little bit, so do stand by. But now let's talk about the most exciting thing, and that's the side-scrolling Mario. Now, the mechanism inside actually keeps you from going left, which is a sweet addition, but as you scroll to the right, you'll see Mario actually moving along thanks to the disc he sits on as he moves along the stage. Now, if you do have the Super Mario block from the starter set, you are actually able to hear the game in action. But at the time of this recording, I don't have the LEGO Mario, so I do apologize for that. But I'm sure you'll find a video on YouTube somewhere that shows it off. But anyways, let's talk about the scrolling mechanism. The mechanism is built on a conveyor belt that moves as you turn the crank, and it is constantly looping from beginning to end. So it is a set path that you'll see over and over. Overall, it works very smooth, but it is being handled by a small little crank. And personally, I don't find the crank to be very durable. More often than not, I find it slipping out of my hands trying to refix it. I did find that actually swapping around the crank and the stud inside on the opposite side does fix the problem and makes it a little more stable. But I do worry about the longevity if it ruins the brick that it goes against. But if you have that problem, just be sure to reverse the stud pieces. After all, it works for me, I'm sure there's no caveats to it. But on a bigger note, and this is one I haven't really seen many people talk about, I noticed that the more you turn it, eventually the top starts to collapse upon itself due to gravity. And eventually I get to a point like right around here where Mario will often get stuck up top because of the way that the top's arching over. And that does worry me long term because if the top's falling off, eventually over time the set is slowly getting messed up. To a point where I'll have to take off the front and try to fix the top panels. If there's a fix to this or something I skipped, be sure to let me know in the comments below, but I don't see many people talking about that. because it does ruin the immersion if it's slowly starting to come apart from the top. So I do hope that there is a fix about that. But overall, this makes for an awesome showcase item, not only authentic to Super Mario, but to gaming as well. And the fact that it makes for an awesome CRT television screen is all the cooler. So as a small little bonus, I want to take this section of the video to talk about what I would like to see in the future from LEGO and Nintendo. But more specifically to talk about this set, as well as what I can see happening potentially. Many have brought up the idea of what would it take if we were able to change the CRT scroller and make it more than just Mario. What other games could possibly work? So I've taken this into consideration, and I've decided to essentially put together what I think would be some awesome fits for games that could work well. So, as a small little showcase, here's a couple games I think would look great in action on this small little CRT. And if they ever make an expansion set, I would love for these games especially to work well with the CRT screen. So, take a look. Overall, with the LEGO NES set, Nintendo and LEGO have struck a great chord between nostalgia as well as making great replications of some amazing pieces of the past. The authenticity and creativeness that comes out of the LEGO NES set is unlike anything I've ever seen out of LEGO, and definitely has that Nintendo charm to it. The biggest highlight here definitely goes to the CRT Television with the scrolling Mario, as that makes for a very interesting set piece that's fun to look at time and time again. Although I don't have the Super Mario brick, I would love to see what it's like to have music and sounds. But for now, you can just see it as it scrolls in action and imagine. After all, this is Mario, and there's nothing like Super Mario. But overall, I give props to the set, the LEGO team, as well as Nintendo for making something that's going to be an awesome collector's piece moving forward, and just captures that little bit of nostalgia that's so well known to both gamers as well as those who grew up in the 1980s. Though personally I did not grow up in those times, I do have my nostalgia for the NES thanks to my grandparents. The one actually holding on hand right now belongs to my aunt, and I'm grateful for having a little set piece in my collection, even if I do need to grow my NES collection. But until then, that's what the Switch is for with the NES Online. But that's besides the point. Overall though, this is a great set, and even with the price tag, I would definitely recommend it for a little bit of that charm and nostalgia that it has to offer. So, that's going to do it for my hands-on of the LEGO NES. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like and comment down below. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Now you're playing with power and bricks.